Hello everybody, it's Catherine from Jayne Catherine on Books, and I'm here with a short story collection. When I first started my channel, I used to do short story Fridays, and I really enjoyed doing them for at that moment in time. And I used to read some of one short story out of a certain collection, and I really enjoyed it. And I asked recently if I should bring back something about short stories, and quite a few of you were interested for me to do that. So I thought, where better to start than a lovely author that I really like is David Almond. Fantastic children's author, and this is a short story collection called Half a Creature from the Sea, a life in stories. And it's not autobiographical. Oh, crack. It's not an autobiography. Autobiographical, that's what I meant to say. But there are characters in here that David Almond knew when he was growing up, situations where he was growing up, and he's got a lovely way with words. He has this way of pulling you in emotionally. There's always an emotional connection when I read his work, and so I thought where better to start, and I got it down on my TBR for July, and I thought we'd start with this, and I thought I'd read just the first story to tempt you to see if you fancy giving it a go. Now, David Almond is a northern lad. He was brought up in the northeast, not far from Hebburn. Now, for those of you in the UK who may have seen, I don't know if it was last year, a couple of years ago, TV series. It was a comedy called Hebburn, and it took place in the northeast of England, and it's all around that sort of area, Newcastle, that sort of round there. So a different way of looking at things, and very down to earth, very warm, welcoming people. So the first one, I'm just going to read this out to you because I sort of want it to, how can we say, you to get a feel for the emotion that he brings out in his I've not read short, I've read some of his short, I don't know what's the matter with me, I can't talk today. His short stories, but standalones, like in very slim volumes. He does quite a few for the book club year. They bring book club read out short stories, from the pound shop and things. Oh God, I can't think what that's called. I think, I'll quit while I'm ahead. I just can't think today, sorry. So yes, this story is called Slog's Dad. Now, it is a bit emotional, so I am warning you, if you don't feel up to any sort of children's story with a bit of emotional, pull at the old heartstrings, then probably don't listen. So spring had come. I'd been running around all day with Slog, and we were starving. We were crossing the square to Myers' pork shop. Slog stopped dead in his tracks. "What's up?" I said. He nodded across the square. "Look," he said. "Look at what?" "It's me dad," he whispered. "Your dad?" "Aye, it's me dad." I just looked at him. "That bloke there," he said. "What bloke?" "Him on the bench. Him with a cap on, him with a stick." I shielded my eyes from the sun with my hand and tried to see. The bloke had his hands resting on the top of the stick. He had his chin resting on his hands. His hair was long and tangled, and his clothes were tattered and worn, like he was poor or he'd been on a long journey. His face was in the shadow of the brim of his cap, but you could see that he was smiling. "Slogger man," I said, "your dad's dead." "I know that, David, but it's him. He's come back again, like he said he would in the spring." He raised his arm and waved. "Dad," he shouted, "Dad." The bloke waved back. "See," said Slog. "Away!" He tugged my arm. No, I whispered, no. And I yanked myself free and I went into Myers, and Slog ran across the square to his dad. Slog's dad had been a bin man, a skinny bloke with a creased face and a greasy flat cap. He was always puffing on a woodbine. That's a cigarette. I don't know if woodbines were available all over the world, but they were very popular. No tips in woodbines. We used to call them coffin sticks. He hung onto the back of the bin wagon. It lurched through the estate, jumped on and off, slung the bins over his shoulder, tipped the muck into the back. He was forever singing hymns, Faith of Our Fathers and Hall, Hail Glorious St. Patrick and stuff like that. Here he comes again, my man would say as he bashed the bins and belted out, Oh, Sacred Heart, at 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning. But she'd be smiling because everybody likes Slog's dad. Joe Mickley, a daft and canny soul. First sign of his illness was just a bit of a limp. Then Slog came to school one day and said, My dad's got a black spot on his big toenail. Just like Treasure Island then, eh? I said, ha ha. But what's it mean? What's it mean, he said. I was going to say death and doom, but I said, he could try asking the doctor. He has asked the doctor. Slog looked down. I could smell his dad on him, the scent of rotten rubbish that was always on him. They just lived down the street from us, and the whole house that had that smell in it. No matter how much Mrs. Mickley washed and scrubbed, Slog's dad knew it. He said it was the smell of the earth. He said there'd be no like it in heaven. The doctor says it's note. Slog said, but he's staying in bed today and he's going to hospital tomorrow. What's it mean, Davy? How should I know? I said. I shrugged. It's just a spot, man. It's just a spot, Slog, I said. Everything happened fast after that. They took the big toe off. Sorry, a bit gruesome this next bit. Took the big toe off, then the foot, then the leg. Slog asked his mother. Slog said his mother reckoned his dad had caught some germs from the bins. My mother said it was all woodbines he puffed. Whatever it was, it seemed they stopped it. They fitted a tin leg on him and sent him home. It was the end of the bins, of course, and he took to sitting in the little garden wall outside the house. So I'm just going to skip forward a bit here. It's one late day in August. Slog's dad caught me looking. He waved me to him. I went over slowly and he winked. It's all right, he whispered. I know you didn't want us to come too close. He looked down to where his legs should be. They tell us if I get to heaven I'll get them back again, he said. What do you think of that then, Davy? I shrugged. Dunno, Mr. Mickley, I said. Do you reckon I'll be able to walk back here if I do get them back again? Dunno, Mr. Mickley. I started to back away. I'll walk straight out them pearly gates, he said. There's no smells in heaven. I'll follow the smells right back here to the lovely earth. He looked at me. What do you think of that? He said. Just a week later, the garden was empty. The week after the funeral, I was heading out of the estate for school with Slog, and he told me, Dad says he's coming back. Slogger man, I said. His last words to me, watch for me in the spring, he said. Slogger man, it's just 'cause he was... What? I gritted my teeth. He was dying, man. I didn't mean to yell at him, but the traffic was thundering past us on the bypass. I got hold of his arm and we stopped. Dying, I said more softly. My mum says that and all, says Slog. She says we'll have to wait, but I can't wait. I can't wait till I'm in heaven, Davy. I want to see him now, one more time. Then he stared up at the sky. Dad, Dad, he whispered. So he's seen this chap sat on this bench and he's convinced it's his dad. So I watched Slog get onto the bench beside the bloke. Do you believe there's life after death? I said. Billy in the shop laughed. Now there's a question for a butcher, he said. A skinny old woman came in past me. What can I do for you, pet? Said Billy. See you, Davy. He laughed. Kids, eh? Slog looked that happy as I walked towards them. He was leaning on the bloke and the bloke was leaning back on the bench, grinning at the sky. Slog made a fist and a face of joy when he saw me. It's Dad, Davy. See, I told you. I stood in front of them. You remember Davy, Dad, said Slog. The bloke looked at me. He looked nothing like Joe Mickley. I used to know. His face was filthy, but it was smooth and his eyes were shining bright. Course I do, he said. Nice to see you, son. Slog laughed. Davy's a bit scared, he said. No wonder, said the bloke. That looks very tasty. I held the sandwich out to him. He took it, opened it, smelt it, looked at the meat and peas pudding and stuffing and mustard and gravy. Oof. He closed his eyes and smiled, then lifted it to his mouth. You got out to drink? No, I said. Has he got a tongue? He looks a bit different, said Slog, but that's just 'cause he's been transfigured, said the bloke. Aye, said Slog, transfigured. Can I show him your legs, Dad? The bloke laughed gently. He bit his Savoy sandwich. His eyes glittered as he watched me. Aye, he said, "Gan on, show him my legs, son." And Slog knelt at his feet and rolled the bloke's tattered trouser bottoms up and showed the bloke's dirty socks and dirty shins. See, he whispered. Aren't they lovely, he says. Touch 'em, Davy, touch 'em. I didn't move. Touch 'em, Davy. Do it for Slogger, Davy, the man said. I crouched and touched. I recoiled and stood up again. It's true, see, said Slog. He's got 'em back in heaven. He got 'em back. What do you think of that then, Davy, said the bloke. Slog smiled. He thinks they're lovely, Dad. Slog stroked the bloke's legs one more time. What's heaven like then, Dad? Said Slog. Hard to describe, son. Please, Dad. It's like bright and peaceful, and there's God and angels and all that. The bloke looked at his sandwich. It was like having all the Savoy dips you ever want with everything every time. It must be great. Aye, son, it's canny. It's dead canny. Are you coming to see me mum then, Daddy said. The bloke pursed his lips and sucked in air and gazed into the sky. I dunno. I don't think I've got time, lad. I don't know if I've got time, son. Slog's face fell. The bloke reached out and stroked Slog's cheek. This is very special, he said, very rare. They let it happen 'cause you're a very rare and special lad. He looked into the sky and talked into the sky. How much longer have I got, he said. Then he nodded. Aye, okay. He shrugged and looked back at Slog. No, he said, time's pressing, I cannot do it, son. There were tears in Slog's eyes. She misses you that much, Dad, he said. Aye, I know. The bloke looked into the sky again. How much longer, he said. He took Slog in his arms. Come here, he whispered. I watched them hold each other tight. You can tell her about me, said the bloke. You can tell her I love her and miss her and all. He looked at me over Slog's shoulder. And so can Davy, your best mate, can't you, Davy? Can't you? Aye, I muttered. Then the bloke stood up. Slog still clung to him. Can I come with you, Dad, he said. The bloke smiled. You know you can't, son. What did you do, I said. Said the bloke. What job did you do? The bloke looked at me dead cold. I was a bin man, Davy, he said. I used to stink, but I didn't mind, and I followed the stink to get me here. He cupped Slog's face in his hands. Isn't that right, son? Aye, said Slog. So what's Slog's mother called then, eh? Your wife, what's her name? The bloke looked at me. He looked at Slog. He pushed the last bit of sandwich into his mouth and chewed. A sparrow hopped close to our feet, trying to get at the crumbs. The bloke licked his lips, wiped his chin, stared into the sky. Please, Dad, whispered Slog. The bloke shrugged. He gritted his teeth and sighed and looked at me so cold and at Slog so gentle. Slog's mother, he said, my wife. He shrugged again. She's called Mary. "Oh, Dad," said Slog, and his face was transfigured by joy. "Oh, Dad." The bloke laughed. "Ha, bloody ha." He held Slog by the shoulders. "Now, son," he said, "you got to stand here and watch me go, and you mustn't follow." "I won't, Dad," whispered Slog, "and you must always remember me." "I will, Dad. And me, you and your lovely mum will be together one day in heaven." "I know that, Dad. I love you, Dad." "And I love you." And the bloke kissed Slog and twisted his face at me, then turned away. He started singing Faith of Our Fathers. He walked across the square, past Myers' pork shop, and turned down onto the high street. We ran after him then, and we looked down the high street past the people and the cars, but there was no sign of him, and there never would be again. We stood there speechless. Billy Myers came to the doorway of the pork shop with a bucket of bones in his hand and watched us. "That was me Dad," said Slog. "Aye," said Billy. "Aye, he came back like he said he would in the spring." "That's good," said Billy. "Come and have a dip, son, with everything." So what a lovely short story. I felt very emotional with that story. And yeah, you can make of that as you will. Was it really, you know, for those that believe, was it really his dad that had come back as a spirit? Or was it somebody playing the part just to make young Slog feel better? I don't know. We'll never know. Yeah, so that is it for this short story collection. Go and give it a look up on Goodreads and what have you. You won't be disappointed. I love David Almond's writing, and I think it's a good way, if you're looking for something for children, it's a good way to introduce delicate subjects, things like that. And yeah, so that's Half a Creature from the Sea, David Almond. So thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every time I keep saying I want to get to that 1,000, loads of people unsubscribe, so I'm sorry if I'm saying something. I don't know what I'm saying that people don't like, but yeah, every time I think I'm nearer the 1,000, I start going downhill fast. So yes, thank you very much to my lovely subscribers. That some of you have been with me a very long time, and all the lovely people. You know, I've got a lovely group of people that always comment, and I want to give you a big thank you, because it's nice to engage in conversation. So that's why I do it. So thank you very much, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.